Hello everyone and welcome back to the Bantamweight Boxing YouTube channel with me, your host, Michael Waite. I hope everyone's well. I hope everyone's had a nice weekend and happy Father's Day to the dads out there. Today we're going to be talking about Chris Billam-Smith versus Richard Riakporhe. Obviously that fight took place last night at Selhurst Park. Chris Billam-Smith got the victory via unanimous decision. Points win, obviously, and let's get into it. Let's talk about it. To start off with, I think it was a slightly disappointing fight, actually. As someone watching it, I was entertained, but it wasn't the most gripping fight ever. I found actually it was pretty one-sided. It was quite an easy win, really, from Chris Billam-Smith. I gave him about 10 rounds out of the 12, and that's kind of being a bit generous, really, to Riakporhe. I think some people said the first round they gave to Riakporhe, and then the ninth round was definitely Riakporhe's, where he had a bit of an onslaught against Smith. But even then, it wasn't like Smith wasn't returning with anything. But yeah, so overall, wasn't the most compelling fight. The way it had been built up, both at quite a similar level. Obviously, fought before. It was very close in their first fight, so you're expecting the same. But just shows how much further Smith has come from that fight. And he's clearly, had the tougher opposition in his last couple of fights. And me personally, I was going to say Riakporhe was going to get the win. I thought those harder fights that he had previously were going to have the detrimental effect of making him the less fresher fighter going into it, and Riakporhe would do a job on him. But yeah, I think quite a few people got this one wrong, and myself, I definitely did. I was predicting Riakporhe to get a stoppage. But really, apart from that ninth round, Smith never looked really in trouble. But let's look at the fight. So in terms of how it played out, I thought Smith had a brilliant game plan and executed it perfectly. It was clear Riakporhe, was going to try and keep it rangy, was going to try and look for that right hand. At the start, Riakporhe had some good success landing the jab. But we just saw throughout the fight there was a lack of A, variation, and then B, output. So, starting off with in the early rounds, Riakporhe's throwing the jab. He's having some success. He throws a jab like a right hand. So, you could see it was hurting Smith. But it was just very one-dimensional. Every now and then throwing that straight jab. And after a while, Smith just started timing it and started, being able to slip past it. And it was clear what Smith wanted to do. He wanted to slip, get on the inside, fight at that kind of mid-range, and he just looked so much more comfortable as a fighter at that mid-range. Riakporhe, looked pretty lost in there a lot of the time. Riakporhe was always looking to clinch. It was throwing it was quite a Coley-esque performance. Throwing that jab rather than following up with something else. He was straight into clinching. Smith again was onto that very quickly, made it clear to the referee, look, he's trying to clinch every time the fight, we engage, and the referee was having none of it. He eventually got deducted a point later on in the round, but I think the referee did overall quite a good job of preventing it from being a hugging fest. But yeah, just talking a little bit more about Smith, I thought he did very well. Avoiding that kind of straight right from Coley, keeping it at the kind of mid-range, throwing, some good combinations through the uppercut plenty of times. That seemed to land really well, and then coming in with the left hook. So very impressive. He didn't do anything, Billam-Smith didn't do anything spectacularly well. But again, him as a fighter, he's just got the fundamentals down, hasn't he? There's nothing which is particularly eye-catchy, but his jab was still good, was able to compete with the jab. But it was, for me, the main thing was kind of that inside, that kind of mid-range, was where Smith was at his best. In terms of Riakporhe, as I said, the output wasn't really there. I don't know if the occasion got to him a little bit. It was at Selhurst Park. It was a huge event, a big stadium fight. It was kind of really set up to be the passing of the torch, or not really a passing of the torch, but his moment, in his fan, it's his team, Crystal Palace, all of that. But I don't know if he froze a little bit. His gas tank definitely wasn't there. There was just no variation. You got to, if your jabs, if you're not landing with the jab, you got to try and double jab. You got to try and come with something else on, setting up that right hand. And the whole fight, he was looking to land that right hand, obviously. But if you're not going to set it up, it was just too easy for Smith to get out of the way of it. A few times he was loading up, throwing that, throwing that right hand with all the power he had, and Smith was just ducking under it, and it just wasn't really his night. In terms of the corners, Riakporhe's corner were literally shaking him, saying, this fight is slipping away from you. And as the rounds ticked by, Smith was just picking them up, just by doing a bit more work every time, just doing a bit more work, a bit more variation. Clearly the stamina was, Smith was clearly setting a tempo which Riakporhe just couldn't match. And as a result, with the higher output, was just ticking over the rounds. And before you knew it, you were at the 7th round, and I'm thinking, God, I've only given 1 round here to Riakporhe. Like, now he needs the stoppage. And we knew that was always going to be his game plan, but he needs it. I thought it was going to be a lot closer fight. Maybe a few knockdowns here or whatever. But, and then, he was kind of chasing that stoppage. We saw him let his hands go, as I mentioned at the start, in the 9th round, hurt Smith. But that's what I love about Smith. He is an absolute warrior. Was able to ride the punches. And I think he knew, by the 9th round, he knew he was nearly home and dry. And there was nothing really that seriously hurt him. He took some punishment, but he's a warrior, man. He reminds me of a larger Carl Froch. He's got the fundamentals, got the chin, and he was able to weather the storm. And then after that, and even in that 9th round, he was still throwing stuff back. He knew, I'm never gonna completely go on the back foot. I'm never gonna completely accept defeat here. So even when Riakporhe landed a few, he was like, no, I'm going to come back and put the pressure on him and make my presence known. And went on and got the win. The scorecards were ridiculous. I think someone had it at 115, 112, something ridiculous like that. But don't, if you see the scorecards, completely ignore it. One of the most one-sided fights I've seen in a while. Real shame for Riakporhe. I don't think you're going to get a better chance at winning a world title. I'm not sure he will now. That was set up for him against Smith. That is, I'm looking around at the Opataya and all of that. I don't see him winning against any of those. Let's talk about kind of what's next for each of the fighters. Riakporhe, as I've just kind of mentioned, there's not a lot of options out there for him, and in terms of continuing to take a step up. What I am predicting is I could definitely see him going to Bridgerweight and fighting a Coley, and God rest, God save us if that is the case, because that might be one of the worst fights you ever watched. The clinching we're going to see in that, if that does take place. But I could potentially see that, and then he's got a chance at a world title there. Billam-Smith, I think he's reached a great place in his career now. He's avenged obviously that loss to Riakporhe, been a world champion, defended it a few times, but again there's some real killers in that division. I think there's talks of unifying with Opataya, but I'm not sure he's at the level there. But whatever happens, I think he can bow out. He's put on some huge stadium fights. I'm not saying he obviously is going to bow out, but he's in a great place at the moment. And it was an okay fight, but not one of the best. But let me know what your guys' thoughts are. If you've enjoyed the breakdown, do drop a like and subscribe. Growing the channel to 200 subscribers, so jump on the train. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll catch you in the next one.